It is 5:01, and we welcome you to the special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is a policy work session. We will begin this meeting with a roll call of our board members. For attendance, if you are present, please say present. Director Song? Director Song is absent. Director Clark?
Present.
Vice President Cook?
Present.
And I am present. We are starting off our work session, our policy work session, and I call upon Superintendent Bella.
Thank you, President Margell, members of the board, and team. I wanted to start this evening by first thanking our board for your collective efforts in this work. Policy work is not easy work. It takes a team, and I know that in my tenure as superintendent, we've really been focusing on this work, and so I just commend you for the work that you've done and will do, because we continue doing this work together. So I appreciate that. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Hawley to get us going this evening.
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, Ms. Curry, and Team KSD. It feels like we just saw each other. I know you'll be heartbroken to learn that this is probably a pretty quick session tonight. Some of the policies being brought forward have minimal updates, but they are more than 20 years old and sorely in need of review for us to be current. We may have a policy that says it's been updated in 2007, and maybe it says on the screen that WASDA updated it in 2023, but WASDA's probably had a few iterations that we haven't caught up with, so we're doing some major catch-up work. As the board has driven this work, they focus on the essentials right now. That was the board's desire, to focus on the essentials. We're making great progress. We still have a ton of policies to catch up on, but we're really making great progress. We always talk about the classifications, and again, we're focusing on the essentials. I'm just going to run through the PowerPoint quickly, and then we'll pull up each one. We have Policy 2110, Transitional Bilingual Instruction, first reading. This is an encouraged policy. I wanted to point out this picture. You may recognize someone on the screen back there. This was from when Governor Jay Inslee signed House Bill 1153 into law on March 23rd, 2022. Policy 3220, Freedom of Expression, first reading. 3520, Student Fees, Fines, or Charges, first reading. 5050 Contracts, also first reading. 5240, Evaluation of Staff. And that is the agenda for tonight. We'll pull up the individual ones and get started here. Okay, the first one is Transitional Bilingual Instruction Program. Is that the correct one? Okay, great. The educational language access, that term refers to the ability of families and educators to engage in effective two-way communication through high-quality interpretation and translation services. Well, language access is essential for all interactions. It becomes especially crucial for important meetings like SPED and Section 504 plans, discipline, and safety. I also want to mention this isn't just about languages of another, as opposed English, Spanish. It's also for hard of hearing. That's what this policy focuses on. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay. Next, we're on to 3220, Freedom of Expression. Washington is among 14 states that have reinstated press rights to student journalists, demonstrating the state's commitment to ensuring students can report on important issues affecting their communities without fear of punishment. The New Voices Act, which went into effect in 2018, is very simple and straightforward. Public high school journalists, including yearbook staff, determine the content of student media, and that media cannot be removed or edited by school officials unless it meets certain standards, such as libel, slander, unwarranted invasions of privacy, violations of law or certain school policies, or inciting students to create clear and present danger or disruption of orderly operation of the school. Student media advisors cannot be penalized for refusing to censor students. And again, this policy, KSD's, is 20 years old, and these updates that have happened in 2018 just have not caught up with us yet, but here we are. Any questions?
One for the superintendent. The problem is we've entered a digital age, and quite obviously, student media, there's obviously programs in the various schools. In fact, even out at Grass Lake, I think elementary, they do not quite a daily news report. But the point is that covered under this? Because I'm reading this as publications, but it doesn't specify digital media.
Yeah, I believe it is, because if you notice in the narrative, it's anything that would be considered a disruption to the educational process and, or the operation of the school stated here. But I'll go ahead and have Dr. Kim, team advise on that or guide.
Yeah, thank
Shield?
you. I think where it says school-sponsored media, under student publications there, it specifically mentions school-sponsored media. So I think that use of media is broad enough to cover whether it was a printed newspaper, a yearbook, or whether it was the Comtech class putting on their news, their video news that they show once a week.
Okay. So
All of that would be considered school-sponsored media.
Anything sponsored by the district is covered.
Right, sponsored by a school, so it wouldn't cover things they do outside of school, but for
yeah,
school-sponsored media,
right.
yep,
Okay.
it would count.
Anything else?
Yeah, when we went to WASDA, one of the things that really got brought up was about student voice and that, and the idea of disruption. And one of the, and I'm going to remember it a little wrong, but it was students protesting, I think, a war or discrimination, or it was something that very culturally relevant to the time that might disrupt school. And so is our policy then stating that as a journalist that happens to be in school, you can't comment on those very culturally relevant topics because somebody might take offense at that?
Disruption is a pretty, for most administrators, I think disruption is a fairly clear standard. And I think this policy would say if a student journalist is reporting on like a walkout that occurred to protest something, that reporting on that would clearly be covered as that student journalist's free speech rights, right? Or if they were writing an editorial where they were, advocating, or supporting this walkout that had occurred the week before, that would all still be considered the student exercising their student free speech, student journalist free speech rights.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to meet that with the words that I'm seeing in here.
Sure.
And I don't know if I see that.
Yeah.
President Margell, will you look at the highlighted section and see if maybe that part helps? Is it, you need it bigger?
No, I could read that one, thank
Okay.
you. I would also look to my fellow board members if they feel like this.
And I think maybe if this helps, this only covers the behavior of students acting as student journalists, right?
Of
In
course.
school-supported media.
Yep.
So if it's other types of behavior that have nothing to do with your role, then that would be covered potentially under a discipline policy, right? If I understand your concern about, and maybe if I can clarify your concern, was your question more about like, if students decide to have a walkout for some reason, would this policy cover students engaging in a walkout?
I guess that, or the journalist that's covering it too.
So I would say the journalist covering it, 100% covered by this.
Okay.
Students choosing to engage in a walkout, they're not journalists, so they wouldn't be covered by this. We have other policies and procedures that would cover that, and we've had that happen from time to time, right? And I would say our administrators, in partnership with often our community connections department and our, our office, are sensitive to, we have not in the past said the 300 students who walked out are all going to be suspended for, right? Because it just doesn't make sense. It's not logical, right? In fact, we often turn that around and use it as a teaching, as a social studies, having been a social studies teacher, right? What a great teaching opportunity to talk with students about.
Yeah, I could also add to that, President Margill, that in the past, depending on, connected to the march or students exercising their freedom of speech, in not all, they don't lose their First Amendment rights, at the threshold.
Of course.
Our principals do an excellent job of, let's actually work together to say, so what's occurring in the future potentially? Let's meet with some student reps. Let's actually take a look at how we can do the march safely, promptly, and still allow the students. And typically, that's the way it's done. The disruption piece is if it's, individual or a group, certainly that's different, but we've had that happen before. Not often, but enough that our administrators really kind of know what they're doing in that area, so.
Ms. Hawley, I appreciate the comments. That's highlighted. I'm good with it for now, for at least bringing it to a second reading.
Everybody?
Yes.
Do you have a recommendation for any changes or adjustments that you'd like to see?
Not at this time, and that's why I'm good to bring it to a second reading,
Okay.
but I will commit to making sure to look at that piece just a little bit more and before the second reading.
Okay.
See if there's anything that,
That you're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
thank you. Thank you for the time to be able to sit with it too.
Okay, we're on to 3520, student fees, fines, or charges. There has been very little changed in this policy. We're aligning it more with the procedure, which we're updating, and this policy notes that procedure 3520P will outline the appeal process for the charges for fees and fines. So that's really why we're bringing it back. We did look at, the finance department did look at changing the language of the $1,000 amount owed, but it's actually RCW and we have to leave that in there.
Pause for just 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. Just giving him an easier view of this one. I have no questions on this one.
I'm good.
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. 50/50 contracts. This policy was last updated in 2006. WASDA has their retire, rehire, and leave replacement employee language combined. Our HR department split those out because there is differing language between the two in the bargain contract. Again, this is a policy that is several years old, and we're just updating language. Very few changes.
Question, under consultants, I don't see anything in terms of the board being notified and,
So, Director Clark, could you restate that? I heard consultants. So does this cover consultants? Is that?
yeah, section D. Yep.
I believe it does, just in my brief overview, but defer to my team, Mr. Hunter and team.
I believe that the question was about consulting with the board.
Oh, consulting.
No.
Consultant.
It's anytime you bring in an outside employee on a special contract, that should be approved by the board.
Yeah, that would be like some of our positions, hard to fill. We have, yep,
Everything does filter through our typical process of being approved by the
But
board.
is it in policy?
That, I'm not sure, Nita.
We don't have any language about cost in there, and I think that's where the threshold would be. You know, we have certain threshold levels.
I think the concern might be in that second sentence, it says, the superintendent or designee determines the compensation paid to a consultant and considering costs incurred and benefits derived therefrom. And I think that's maybe the concern that Director Clark has.
So can you restate the question, Director Clark?
Consultant contracts, and maybe we have to create a threshold, I
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
that's a possibility, but in general, any outside commitment should be approved by the board. And that language needs to be expressed.
We can
That's
definitely
what I
put that
meant
in
by
there.
consulting with the board.
Yeah.
Oh, not a consultant of the board, that you consult
The-
with the
the board,
board.
yeah.
Right.
Yes,
Exactly.
Consult the board.
yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It did been confusing.
If we add that language in about the board needing to be consulted, is it good to move forward for a second reading?
Yes.
Maybe just with the approval of the board, like something along those lines, so that we know that
Yeah.
the board is going to approve it if necessary.
Is there a threshold for that? I cannot imagine that, I don't want to see a consultant for $500.
yeah, it's a,
Yeah, that makes, I mean, I don't know what our threshold is for that. Is it the same as everything else? Like 25,000?
Can we take this back?
Yeah.
It
Sure,
sounds like there's
of
some
course.
questions still
Sure.
around it. Thank you. Any other questions that, since they're looking at it?
So,
We'll move it to the next policy work session,
Thank you.
okay? We are on to 5240, evaluation of staff. This update references the various collective bargaining agreements and the evaluation criteria contained therein. The update also cites House Bill 1326 in the legal references. The new law confirms that the present policy that the school administrator can supervise a nurse in all aspects of employment other than the practice of nursing, but only a registered nurse, and in our case, it would be Lindy Barron, can evaluate the nurses on their nursing portion of their position. Any questions?
We're good.
Well, 5:20, and our next policy work session is March 26th. Thank you, board members. Thank you, team.
sorry.
It is now 5:21, and we are now going to, we're going to break until 5:30. And then at 5:30, we will go into an executive session for 30 minutes. The purpose of the executive session is to discuss the performance of a public employee, potential litigation, and the legal or financial risks of a course of action.
How long?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Okay.
So it'll go from
5:30.
5:30 till 6.
And then we still have to wait till 6:30 to start our regular meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
We will come back. Good evening. It is 6 p.m. Our executive session adjourned at 5:57 p.m. We will come back at 6:30 into our regular board meeting and open session. Thank you. Good evening. It is 6:30, and we are calling our regular meeting to order. At this time, we'll do a roll call of board members for attendance. If you are present, please indicate so by saying present. Director Song?
Present.
Director Clark?
Present.
Vice President Cook?
Present.
And I am present. Director Clark, will you help us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome. This is a meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. We welcome the public's participation in the board meeting and thank those of you who have come to this meeting and those who are viewing via our live stream. The purpose of a board meeting is for the board to conduct its business in public. During the meeting, the board will listen to but not respond to comments from visitors. Whether made verbally in person, verbally on video, or written, comments are limited to a total of one per person per regular board meeting. One additional comment per person may be substituted for a public hearing topic if there is a public hearing on the agenda. All forms of public comment are subject to Chapter 4256 RCW Public Records Act. The public may comment at regular board meetings in a manner authorized by state law. All comments must adhere to Policy 1420 and Procedure 1420P. If you wish to make a comment to the board, comment forms are available for completion prior to the meeting and must be turned in no later than the beginning of the legislative report. No forms will be accepted once this report has begun. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Public comments will be heard after the agenda review. Students will be the first to speak on any topic during the student voice portion of the agenda, which takes place immediately following the opening. General public comments from non-students will be heard during preliminary communication from the audience. Any remaining comments, whether from students or non-students, will be heard at specific agenda items and during final communication from the audience. Student comments will be heard first on any topic. Please state your first and last name prior to beginning your testimony. Abuse of public comments personally directed towards the board, staff, or students will not be tolerated. The use of specific names or personally identifiable information of board, staff, or students is not allowed. Board members or KSD staff members may interrupt or terminate an individual statement when not adhering to Procedure 1420P. All comments, whether verbal or written, must adhere to the standards of civility as defined in Policy 1400, Meeting Conduct, Order of Business, and Quorum. If you're seated in overflow room, there's a brief delay in the live stream audio. We will allow extra time for you to make your way into the boardroom after your name is called. Individuals with items for the board or superintendent must provide the items directly to safety services staff. Approaching the dais during the board meeting is not allowed. Any items turned in will be provided to the board and superintendent following the meeting. Director Song, will you please read our land acknowledgement?
We acknowledge we are gathered upon the ancestral lands of the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, who historically lived throughout the area between the Cascade Mountains and Puget Sound.
Thank you very much. Superintendent Vella, are there any changes to the agenda?
President Margell, there is one change to the agenda tonight. Last night during a special meeting, the board conducted 7 interviews for the director, District Number 4 vacancy. Through nominations and roll call voting, the board took final action to select Ms. Teresa Gregory as the new Kent School District Board Director for Director District 4. To adhere to Procedure 1114P, board member resignation and vacancy, and based on Ms. Gregory's availability on short notice, we'll be adding oath of office for appointed director as item 11.01 for newly selected director, District 4 board member, Ms. Teresa Gregory. The oath of office for appointed director will become the new Section 11. Section 11. Item 11.01, communication, will become the new Section 12, and adjournment will become Section 13 on tonight's agenda.
May I have a motion to add oath of office for appointed director as the new item 11.01?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda with the amendment of the additional section as indicated.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion. I would just like to give thanks to Ms. Gregory for her flexibility in accommodating this with less than 24-hour notice. I know that this is a change to our agenda, but as we didn't finish the meeting last night until nearly 11 p.m., it was unavoidable. And luckily, we have a very flexible, soon-to-be board member. Any further comments? Seeing that there is none, there is a open motion that has been seconded to approve the agenda as stated with adding oath of office for appointed director as the new item 11.01. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. The motion passes 4-0. We now move to section 2.0, student voice.
I will check with Ms. Intello. Do we have any student voice public comment?
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, and Ms. Curry. No student comments were received online or in person tonight. There was one comment received online, but will be heard during the preliminary communication from the audience 5.01.
Thank you very much. We now move on to section 3.0, recognition. Our first is National School Counseling Week. Director Clark.
If I can, I just want to comment on my many years in the classroom, finishing my career out here in Kent, that counselors are absolutely crucial in supporting the mission of what the building is doing, because all of us as human beings face tragedy and trauma, and unfortunately with kids, also abuse can occur. And counselors are absolutely crucial in helping us get through that and to support parents and guardians in the challenges that they face. And with that, whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools at all levels to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their strengths, interests, and talents, as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help parents or guardians focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors in Washington are critical partners in the state's effort at improving academic achievement of students and reducing dropout rates, and whereas school counselors are critical to the mission of our schools and actively align their programs with school and district improvement efforts, whereas school counselors continue to collaborate with professional organizations, public and private educational stakeholders, and school officials to implement an OSPI endorsed best practice framework to guide local districts. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaim February 3 through 7, 2025 as National School Counseling Week in the Kent School District, and urge all citizens to join in this observance.
Thank you, Director Clark. Our next proclamation, National Black History Month. Vice President Cook.
All right, so I will read this one here. Whereas, when he founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, now the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, on September 9th, 1915, Dr. Carter G. Woodson labored under the belief that historical truth would crush falsehood and usher in a new era of equality, opportunity, and racial democracy. And it has been its charge for over a century. And whereas in 1926, Dr. Woodson initiated the celebration of Negro History Week to bring attention to his mission to promote the study of Black history and help school systems coordinate their focus on the topic. And whereas in 1976, the celebration of Black History Month was decreed a national observance and expanded to include the entire month of February. And whereas today, Black History Month is supported and celebrated throughout the country by people of all ethnic and social backgrounds, and whereas for more than a century, African American life, history, and culture have become major forces in the United States and the world, and whereas confident that their struggles mattered in human history, Black scholars, artists, athletes, and leaders self-consciously used their talents to change how the world viewed African Americans. And whereas In celebrating the entire history of African Americans and the arts, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History puts into the national spotlight the richness of the past and present with an eye towards what the rest of the 21st century will bring. African American Life and History dedicates its 98th annual Black History theme to African Americans and the arts. And whereas the Kent School District's commitment to equity and excellence for each and every student is grounded in the rich legacy, courage, and remarkable contributions of those who sacrificed to keep these dreams alive for generations to come and build a nation that is more just and more equal for all people. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Kent School District proclaims the month of February 2025 National Black History Month in Kent School District and urges all citizens to join in this observance.
Thank you very much, Vice President Cook. I have the pleasure of being able to read our proclamation for item number 3.03, Career and Technical Education Month. I've heard it explained that we make sure that our students graduate onto something, not just graduate. And the CTE credits that we offer in our schools give so many more of our students the opportunity to do just that, and that they get to move on to the next stage of their life with more skills and a leg up. So I'm really excited to be able to read this one this month. Whereas, one of Kent School District's goal is to prepare all students to be college and career ready by raising the academic and social learning bar and closing the gaps to students' achievement in college completion. And whereas Career and Technical Education, CTE, offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness. And whereas students in CTE programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement. And whereas Kent School District understands the significance of CTE and offers CTE at Kent Meridian, Kent Lake, Kent Ridge, Kent Wood, Kent Laboratory Academy, as well as the middle school level. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Kent School District Board of Directors proclaims February 2025 as National Career and Technical Education Month and urges all citizens to recognize the importance of CTE to prepare all students for success in career, college, and life. Signed this 12th day of February 2025 by the Board and Israel Vela, Secretary to the Board. We now move on to our next section, 4.0, and I call upon Superintendent Vela for introductions in our next subject.
Thank you, President Margell. I have to introduce to you Mr. Dave Buzzard, who are our Executive Director of Operations, who will be introducing our presenter for tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Buzzard.
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Villa, and Ms. Curry. I'm not going to spend any time here. I'm just going to bring our Director of Athletics and Activities, Brian Smith, to give his presentation and be very wise to look at graduation rates when children play sports.
First off, thank you, President Margell, President Margell and the board and Superintendent Bella and Ms. Curry. It's a privilege to be here to talk about something that I'm extremely passionate about. As you can see, I've selected some slides from a much longer set that I originally put together, but I'm here because I serve to provide connections to purposeful-based athletics and activities in environments that kids are seen, safe, and supported. And that's important to me. I want our kids to have a voice wherever they're at, whatever they're participating in, they're part of this process. And obviously, we want them to be safe in participation. We want them to feel safe wherever they're traveling and be supported by quality coaches. My team consists of myself, I have 2 assistants in my office, and I have 3 maintenance staff as well. We work on everything from delivering mats to our tournaments, setting up fields, lining fields, setting up transportation, training coaches, clearing athletes. working with ASB bookkeepers, working with activity coordinators, working with athletic directors, and finally hiring all of our coaches and directors that work with our kids. It's important to note that there really isn't a department that we don't work with in athletics and activities. We are a connection between CTE and field trips. We are a connection with all of our schools getting buses and transportation throughout the state. We wish people well when they're going to national tournaments, whether they're our DECA students or our cheer staffs. We are there behind the scenes setting them up. And oftentimes, we're just that little spike of an iceberg, but so much of what we do is just under the water. We don't know what we're doing, or you don't know that we're doing that, but we know what we're doing. And so I have an excellent staff, very supportive of what we do. They know our mission, and they do everything they can to provide for our kids. Our kids, our students, from kindergarten up, our philosophy is we want to provide them with opportunities plus. We want all of our kids to graduate and move on to something by being competitive daily, knowing that they need to compete. And if they leave our schools not knowing that, they've lost something. I also want them to be able to communicate for themselves, for their friends, for their job, for anything they need. They need to be able to talk, communicate, and lead. I also want our kids to be able to overcome adversity. I want them to fall and get up. That's one of the beautiful things about the activities that we have. It is a protected environment. We know that they're going to fail, and we have people there to put them back up and help them. I also want them to be able to plan for success, setting goals, knowing how to accomplish those things, step by step, and again, with a great mentor right by their side. Lastly, I want them to develop positive habits. I think when you read through our extensive athletic code and some of the rules that deal with some of the things that are out there that can cause them to go down the wrong road, we're trying to build positive habits. We're not trying to discipline, we're trying to teach them those skills to be successful. When we say opportunities plus, we need kids involved. We want them to be a part of something bigger than just their classroom because it helps them there. And so opportunities, we talk to our coaches about it. We talk to our athletic directors about it. We want every single kid to get that opportunity and to have that possibility of growth. Mr. Buzzard talked about athletic participation. First off, our athlete demographics are very telling of the kids in our school. I wish I could have better demographics of our coaches. I'm working on that to make a direct comparison to show you, and so down the road, that will happen. I will tell you that we're close to 200 female coaches, which is pretty impressive across the district, and we're always looking for more. What I'll also tell you that Mr. Buzzard alluded to is the fact that we all know what our graduation rates are for our schools. We did one simple search, just one variable, that is, they played in a sport, that student, and we literally went from an 84% graduation rate to 98% graduation rate. And I think we can attribute that to a lot of things. Some of it's great mentors, people chasing them around and making sure they're getting work done. But I truly believe when you put that uniform on, you become part of something. You want to go to school. You want to be a part of school. You don't want to miss out. You don't want to let people down. And so hopefully with those opportunities, with the great things that are going on, we'll continue to see this connection. I also like to introduce to you a great group of kids that I am fortunate to work with. This is our student athlete leadership team. Much of what you read about Opportunities Plus came from them. We asked them what's important. We asked them what they need from coaches. And so that's where our mission came from, is from this group. Pardon me. We have 8 representatives from each of our high schools that meet quarterly and take our lessons, the things that we're talking about, and get them back into their schools. The last school year, they came up with 4 very strong initiatives. 4 things that, I mean, as an adult leader in athletics, I was pretty proud that they came up with these things, as a matter of fact. So, number 1, they want student fan participation. They want kids watching other kids, and that's important to them. They want to promote athletics or athletes' input. They want students to have voice, and that's important to them. They also are making practice a priority. And maybe that sounds odd, but through COVID, we lost something there where kids don't think practice is as important as it is. And so we talk about letting your teammates down. We talk about the importance of, that adult's there for you every day. You should be there and helping them out. When you're not there, whether it's a drill or a skill, you're going to miss something that affects everybody. And so big focus for us. And finally, addressing discriminatory behaviors. We've seen that throughout our league, throughout the state. There are some strong initiatives out there, but the thing that I've thought is missing is the kid's voice. We need them to create the goals and the steps to break that down, make it stop. And today, as a matter of fact, we really had a difficult, courageous conversation with those students and found out a lot of great things and found out their support for our initiative as well as a league that we're going to try to do better. And so I'll give you some feedback as we build that and continue on. But it's a great group of kids. Most of what you see in our work goes through their hands. So our athletic code has been viewed by this group and updated. When we developed our social media regulations for the athletic code, they were really the ones that put that together. I'm not a pro about social media. They are. And so we want to utilize their strengths. I'm also proud to talk about our unified Special Olympics, our schools that are so involved with this, but also let you know that the KSD receives about $35,000 from Special Olympics, the national office, and has really helped us because we have been a focus district for them. Not just the state level, but national level, as a matter of fact. And so we are, putting stipends out there. We are getting transportation. We are getting uniforms. We are making this a focus. Things have grown so fast that we have 16 middle schools that are considered unified schools, which means they've incorporated leadership, the sports, their student government, all involved with unified in the programs and the ideals of that program. As a matter of fact, we have the first ever in the United States, a national banner school that's an elementary school. It's never happened before. And so this spring, we will have a huge celebration for them. It'll be all over the news, and they're doing great work at Martin Sartoon, just so you know. Fabulous work. So 16 schools. Stories at the elementary school. Sometimes our adults that might have some of their own interests can interject and get kids fired up. We had unified ballroom dancing at one of our elementary schools that 50 kids participated in. And it was a big hit. And so, again, you start with things that attract the kids. It breaks down barriers, some of those initial bias fears of kids with intellectual disabilities, and they're just like you. They love to have fun. They love to compete, and that's important. We also take care of facility use in my office, which makes sense with athletics. We have a lot of fields, a lot of gyms, a lot of rooms that are being used by athletics and activities. So we do oversee that, and so the graph that you can see talks about the number of uses at schools, hourly, and just pure number of uses. And so there's a bar graph there, there's a line graph there, and might surprise people, but our most used site is Kentwood High School. More than Kent Meridian, as a matter of fact. And I think it's just because it's centrally located. And so good facilities. These graphs, we can produce a lot with the program that we're using. We use FMX. We began that journey with them 2 years ago. And since then, I think our custodial staff has moved to FMX as well. And so fully integrated across the district. All of our schools then also would put in requests through FMX so we can communicate, see calendars, know what's going on at schools through this program. Last but not least for me, I think it's really important that everyone understands the multitude of partnerships that occur through my office. Namely, I would talk about Kent Parks and Covington Parks. Number one, you can see the great view of Canyon Ridge right there. Now it's a fully lit facility. They're using it nightly. If it didn't have those lights, it would just be sitting there. And so for me, that is a common sense, community member driven project that we are using those fields to their full extent. And we're partnering that with that. We also know that after school hours, KLA's green field by the school is used by Kent Parks. It's a campus park for them. And what that does for them, that helps them per capita give them more acreage of parks where they need that. And so we're looking for other facilities that we can do that with them. I will tell you that there are projects in line for Campus Park next to KM, huge changes there down the road. We're also looking at Meridian Middle School as the whole facility changeover. That will probably involve King County, Kent Parks, and Kent School District. So that could be a very big project, but also one that would just absolutely serve this community, is much needed in that area. There's also a huge cricket circle that's in that plan as well, because many in our community are looking for that space and we don't have it. And so we need to look ahead and see what our needs are. I also would say that I have seen trends specifically in our lower socioeconomic girls' sports that we're missing them. They're not there. And I have gone all the way down to Kent Parks and their rec leagues and asked, how do we get more girls out? What's your data? What are you seeing? And a year ago, we started a campaign called Get in the Game. And so you will see these ads on buses going through Kent with our logo on there, with their logo on there, trying to encourage kids to get in the game. If we can't get those girls connected to athletics, they're going to go back 3 slides to that stat and maybe not graduate and maybe not finish what our goals are for all of our kids. So sometimes you have to go grassroots. If we can't get them in some of our middle schools or high schools, then we need to go lower down into the elementaries and figure out what's going on. Kent Parks has been very gracious. They've put on 6 different field days at some of our hardest hit schools. We've put out turbo jabs and all kinds of things that kids might be interested in. So a variety of different activities, maybe different than your normal field day, but very sports specific. Handed them schedules, talked to them about how they can get involved in middle school and in the parks programs. So great stuff, proud of that. I also say that Kent Parks in sharing music and art at our schools has been amazing. And just last week, they filled our theater in Kent Meridian with a great music show. They are an amazing group of talented people down there at Kent Parks that are really driven by our kids. I believe at this time we have 700 kids participating in basketball, which has tripled, I think, since COVID. And so these efforts are making a difference. Last but not least, we do have some social media out there, the KSD Sports Zone. We try to put a lot of information up there, but we also have a great partnership with the Kent Reporter in that we run weekly Athletes of the Week from each of the high schools, monthly and Coach of the Month that we're trying to promote and put great information out there. It's exciting. I'm happy where we're going. It was hard to go through COVID, but I believe that we're well on our way and doing great things for kids. And obviously, we all like to win state championships, but right now we're trying to get kids out doing great things and teaching them everything we can, and championships will come. Any questions?
Director Tong.
Hi, I just want to start off with saying thank you so much. I think this presentation was very well timed, especially as we start to enter seasons where we know that we start to see a dip in motivation, engagement. I truly believe that sports and just being able to provide the opportunities to engage in extracurriculars is something very beneficial for students. I mean, as a mental health clinician, one thing that I'd like to see, and I'm wondering if you guys have this data, is tracking to see if there's any correlation or if we can show any kind of data to advocate for additional fundings by combining the aspects of students' emotional and cognitive growth with the aspects of sports. One psychodynamic theory is what we call behavioral activation. And through that process, it's how do we actually take the social emotional learning skills that they're learning in the classroom, but then also putting it into practice and combining both the physiological and the emotional and cognitive growth aspects of our students. And so I guess to shorten that, my question is, do we have any of that data? And is that something that we can request?
Yeah, I think we could dig into that for sure. I will tell you that coming out of COVID, that was a real focus for our coaches in trainings and sharing ideas because kids needed it. But I don't think that need is gone at this point. So it's still something we talk about. It's still something we work through. And I'd be interested in that data as well. And if we do come up with it, I would love to share it.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
I just want to thank you for the real work you've done in trying to open up other avenues of participation, particularly at middle school, that very clearly has made a difference in terms of kids actually being involved. And I appreciate the circumstances that we're facing right now with everything from borderline, or not borderline, but school boundaries creating necessity to rearrange your head in terms of what you belong to as a culture, and athletics is just such a wonderful way to build self-esteem. So thank you so much for what you do.
And I'm the first one to say that obviously athletics I spend a lot of time with that, but like our robotics programs, the many activities at our schools, our intramurals that we put in place just a year ago in our middle schools, I just hear nothing but positive things. And if we talk about social emotional, we talk about connections to school, those activities provide everything that a sport does for a kid. They are in that same statistic, no doubt, about graduating and being connected.
Have we ever thought about, I say this as somebody who started a swimming program for people who have self-identified as what we would probably have are the Special Olympics. It's not particularly part of Special Olympics. Have we ever thought about partnering with Special Olympics within our district for swim?
We have offerings for ambulatory division, not intellectual disabilities in swim, so the WI does that at the state meet. I certainly can talk to Special Olympics. I meet with them frequently and see what their offerings are, but sure, we're doing that, I mean, almost full-fledged right now in track with relays, and so I don't see why you couldn't do that in swimming.
And I know that KCAC hosts a very large Special Olympics swim meet every year that many of our athletes have timed out or been part of. So I would love to.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's a great sport that everybody can participate in.
Yep.
I just want to say there were so many things that went right with moving sixth grade up, and one shining part of that was the athletics. I love the opportunities that our students had in a wide variety of activities and sports, and really getting them into kind of that rhythm of sports that goes up into our high schools, and seeing the participation level. And just, I was able to attend a lot of the middle school basketball games. And I love that because you can really hear what's going on the court.
True.
And when you were talking about SALT and the language that is used with athletes and on the court and how important that is. I loved hearing our middle school athletes cheering each other on, even when, it was a complete brick.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because you try again the next time. And it was one of those things as a parent and a community member that makes you go, okay, we're okay. Our kids have got this.
Yeah.
So thank you very much
You bet.
for doing such a great job in bringing the athletics to our reimagined middle schools with the three
Thank you.
grades.
I will tell you another focus right now with our athletic directors at the middle school level and the high school level is a vertical alignment. And exactly what you're talking about is that we know that, a Meeker, Northwood are going to Kent Ridge, and so why aren't we working together? Not in just common practice, sports specific, but, how we do grade checks, just so that the kids they understand it. And there's a common theme that flows through our schools. And I want to make sure that our kids are connected to that high school, no matter where they're at, knowing that that's their place. Israel and Dr. Behringer, they've heard me say this. One of my overlying goals is to keep Kent kids. And we need to make sure they have that connection between our middle schools and our high schools. Whether that's bringing them up there and, get them the familiar, seeing those coaches, seeing those advisors, we have to figure that out. So that'll be further growth.
To comment on that, at the becoming a freshman at Kent Ridge, that was the one that I was able to experience it. You see the booths of all the different sports that, hey, come be us and, be part of this. Is that same encouragement given to the middle schools for when the fifth graders go and visit?
It was certainly a topic of conversation when we did the sixth grade move. I haven't heard as much. I think it's kind of dependent on their leadership program at each of the middle schools. And so I would say, 3 of the middle schools, yes, for sure. Some of the other ones I'm not as sure about if they're doing that.
Fair, thank you.
If
And
I
you
may
don't have
just.
to- oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Dr. Song.
And we don't need an answer now, but the other question that I wanted to ask that I forgot was, is there anything that the board can do to help? Are we missing any policies or anything related to roadblocks or barriers that might make accessibility to some of these resources more challenging, or if there's anything that the board can do to also participate in advancing more of these resources? So maybe another thing that we can follow up on.
Sure. That would be a good follow-up. I would need to think about that a little bit. But
If-
I will tell you that, between the people that I report to since I've been here, going through Israel, going through Dr. Behringer and Dave, they know what my goals are. They've supported me throughout. There's been big changes here in the sense of how we finance and support our sports, still being a very small percentage of the overall budget. I just want to make sure we have equity throughout the school district. And so when I see schools that are fundraising for uniforms, I'm like, if you're going to turn out for a sport in Kent, it's going to be there for you. And so, those are some past practices that we've had to say, we'll take care of you. And that's there shouldn't be any barriers when kids want to participate in Kent School District.
Absolutely. Director Song, we were thinking the same way. I was just going to thank our board, current and past, for their continued support of athletics and activities. And as you heard today from Mr. Smith, that there are a lot of things that are happening, and I think he delivered the focus on female athletes. He mentioned the recruitment, the flag football that was started. It was some of the most popular, I think, we have a lot of interest in that.
We sure do.
But he has a lot of other ideas to do so. But I appreciate the question, because certainly we'll be back for your continued support.
Yeah. And, we do a participation survey, so we actually know what the kids are interested in doing. Based on that, we added badminton at the middle school level. It's been 3 years ago now, and we have average of 40-some girls on every single one of our middle school teams, which helps us Title IX wise because it's hard to make that up. And it's a different kid that's turning out for that than other sports. And as I would like to say, it's even kind of maybe a gateway sport. It's that first sport of the 4 seasons. And so they're like, well, I kind of had fun with that. Why don't I try the next thing? And so it's been very successful.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We now move on to Section 5.0, preliminary communication from the audience.
Thank you, Ms. Santillo.
Good evening once again, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, Ms. Curry. As stated before, there's one comment submitted for this evening. No in-person comments submitted. This comment was received online. It is a video. I will also note that it was over 3 minutes in time. So I'll play up to the 3 minutes, which is the allotted time. The full video is in your SharePoint for your viewing as your schedule allows.
Hi, my name is Todd Miner. I have 4 children currently in the Kent School District, 3 of which go to Horizon Elementary School. And I'll tell you, they're so proud to be a member of that school. And the staff there just beams with pride. The culture there is just a fragrance that resonates throughout the entire school. And I just love the leadership there and all the staff. I actually attended parent-teacher conferences this week. And I will tell you, I was just in awe of how fantastic the teachers were. But there was a huge facility issue there. There were 2 classes that were super, super cold, really, really chilly. So chilly that it was really difficult for me to sit through a 15-minute conference. I had to put a hooded sweatshirt on. I had to zip it to the top. And it was still very, very cold. The teachers have told me that this is not a singular incident, that this has been an ongoing issue, that it's been very, very cold, and that students at times have to wear hats and jackets to survive the day. And then whenever the heat finally kicks in, it's so hot, it's almost like a sauna. This is not an experience that any student should have in Kent School District. And it's an equity issue because in the newer schools like Covington Elementary School, they don't have this issue. And then what I found out under further research is that because of COVID and the need to have air circulation in the school, the damper is open all the way up. So that means that we take very, very cold air from outside of the school, we pump it in the school, and then, of course, that's going to make the classroom super cold. So again, we take cold air outside and we pump it into the school, and then, of course, it's going to be cold in certain rooms. That's just obvious. Now, there's a couple ways to fix this. One is that we relook at the COVID mandates around having that damper all the way open, especially in the wintertime. Or 2, you simply heat the makeup air as it comes back into the building. Like, there's so many different ways you can heat that air up so it comes back in warm. This is a very simple issue that should have been resolved a very long time ago. Please do not attribute this to the levy, because you have more than enough resources that you should steward to make sure that kids are in a climate-controlled environment. Please do not say that this was an isolated issue, because this happened at 1 p.m. On a Monday morning. And so this was not based on some type of timer on the climate control. This is a very old building and a very, very inefficient heating system. And in the fact that we're pumping in Arctic cold temperatures into a room. So even if the room was at 75, if you put half the air in from outside that is 30 degrees, it's going to be super cold in that room.
Thank you. While I was here at the podium, another comment was received. I'll hand it off to you now, but please note this is for agenda item 8.05.
Thank you very much. We now move on to section 6.0, Superintendent Report. Superintendent Bella.
Thank you, President Margell. Tonight, I want to take a moment to provide a brief update on our district's financial outlook and stability. As some of you may know, across our region, many school districts are grappling with long-term budget challenges, including difficult discussions about school closures. Thinking about neighboring districts around us who, quite honestly, yesterday, running levies, EP&O levies, capital levies, and bonds, I want to be able to share tonight that these financial realities are not easy for school districts. I believe KSD is and will be continuing to proactively address these types of challenges while keeping our students at the heart of every decision we make. Utilizing our resources, I want to take this moment to thank our board, to being those fiscal stewards along with the board, with the superintendent, and making sure that we have fiscal stability for the future. So thank you. I also want to share with you that a key part of our financial stability stems from our hard work of our human resources team and our labor partners in negotiating and reaching 3-year agreements. These labor partners include KEA, Teamsters, Kent Association of Coaches, Kent Principals Association, to name a few. I want to recognize the negotiating teams for their dedication to this process and their joint commitment to a collaborative approach, including the relationships that allowed for that collaboration. Our commitment remains unwavering to provide an excellent education with equitable resources and high-quality learning opportunities for every student, regardless of race, ethnicity, learning differences, language, ability, or zip code. Maintaining solid financial footing allows us to focus on our key strategic priorities. These priorities include strengthening teaching and learning by investing in high-quality instruction, early literacy, and family engagement. As we continue to navigate the complexities of school funding in our region and across the state, our focus will remain where it belongs, on our students and their success. I want to thank our board for their dedication in selecting a new team member to fill the recent board vacancy. I look forward to officially welcoming Ms. Teresa Gregory tonight during this regular meeting, where she will take the oath of office, after which we will share a little bit more information as we move along. I also want to reiterate Vice President Cook's proclamation of celebration of Black History Month. I want to recognize the achievements and resilience and rich cultural contributions of Black Americans throughout history. This month is an opportunity to reflect, learn, and honor the legacy of those who have shaped our nation and continue to inspire us today. In our schools, we remain committed to fostering inclusive learning environments where every student sees their history and potential reflected. Let's take this time to uplift stories of strength, perseverance, and excellence this month and every day. As Director Cook mentioned, this is National School Counseling Week of February 4th through 7th. We honor and appreciate our incredible school counselors for their dedication and compassion, along with their unwavering support of our students. Counselors guide academic and career planning, provide socio-emotional support, and foster a positive school climate. They truly make a difference every day. I thank our counselors for their commitment to helping students thrive. And to our inclement weather team, in case you haven't noticed, we've had a little snow and a little cold weather. A heartfelt thank you to our inclement weather team for their dedication and hard work in keeping our students and staff safe during the recent snowstorms. Your efforts from assessing road conditions, very early in the morning, I might add, parking lots and walking routes to ensuring timely and accurate communication are truly appreciated. We are grateful for your diligence and your teamwork. I want to also reiterate my report from the last time in visiting our state legislatures. We were able to meet with Senator Kaufman on one of those recent visits to Olympia, that I attended with Legislative Rep Director Clark. We received a great email note from her. I appreciate her leadership and support of the Kent School District. As you know, or some of you may not know, her children graduated from the Kent School District. She has been a longtime supporter of our community. We were able to share legislative priorities of inclusive education funding, transportation, materials, supplies, and operating costs, usually referred to as MSOCs. Along that note, I have been a part of a superintendent's convening of local superintendents that are focusing on envisioning ample and equitable school funding for every single student in the state of Washington. We are also aligned in our efforts with many of the professional organizations in the state, including the Washington State School Directors Association, the Washington Association of School Administrators, the Washington Educators Association, and others that have advocated for greater investments and for more equitable funding. This 2025 legislative priorities session, WASA, as an example, includes a $1 billion state investment into 3 areas that I just mentioned: special education, transportation, and MSOCs. I want to also congratulate a couple of our students, talented Kent Meridian students, who competed in a welding category at the Skills USA competition. That's for our welding competition. And they are as follows: Jack Peterson, first place; Missy Lekujak, second place; and Angel Hansen, third place. Congratulations to those students for their outstanding examples of how we are equipping all students with skills and opportunities they need for a successful future. Their achievements highlight the dedication of both our students and educators in preparing for career and technical pathways. Congratulations once again. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Bella. We are now to move on to our legislative update. This is the last reminder to turn in all remaining comment cards, as we will close the blue box once our legislative update begins. Seeing nobody moving fast, Director Clark.
Just to reiterate, the State School Directors Association combined with the State Superintendent's Organization to go in a unified approach into the state legislature so that we're talking about real serious needs. And we know it's a time of financial restraint in the trying to get the budget together for this session. I'm just going to skip through where they're at on some things. Now, in special ed, and you know that's major shortfall in state funding for those that don't quite get it. Special ed was created as a category by the feds, and the feds, when they created it, literally said they would substantiate it with 40% of the money. In my lifetime, that has never happened, so I just mentioned that. But the state really works hard on trying to construct a program that works for kids. But the reality is, when we made that request for specific help in special ed, one of the block points is the cap they put on in terms of how you can actually when you identify, you're only going to receive a set amount of money. It doesn't necessarily equate to the needs of the kids. So the cap it's causing part of our problem. So there are bills right now in the House to decrease the special ed cap. There's more than one. Another one dealt with the safety net threshold. That's safety net is services for support of kids in special ed classrooms. And then one tried to merge tier 1 and 2, and I'm going to tell you that's not going to happen. Other special ed bills, 1267, would have adjusted special ed funding, and the cap is removed if you are at 2,500 or more FTE, and we are. So that would be a significant improvement for the larger school districts in this state. And what they're saying is they know the cap has got to go away, but they don't have this revenue to pay for it right at this point. And then another possible grant program came up under pilots for special ed inclusionary grants, where you're making the extra effort to get more kids out of separated classroom and into the regular classroom. The levy is always an exciting topic. There is Senate Bill 5593, levy and levy equalization adjustments. Just a quick reminder, only 2 years ago, the levy equalization formula changed to higher property taxes and higher, more expensive areas of the state, led to an equalization demand that would have shipped from richer property districts to poor districts, that hence levy equalization. At that time, we were receiving $7 million from the state, and in 1 year like that, it was gone, and we were no longer eligible for levy equalization. So we wait for that. And while we're talking about bonds and voting, there is a House Joint Resolution 4201 that would go for a simple majority on bonds. The Senate Joint Resolution 8200 would have been 55% majority, so down from 60, and even that is in committee being discussed. Don't hold your breath. It requires a constitutional amendment, so that requires a vote, which means you're not going to see that this year. So the final point I would make is, for those that want to really understand some of the problems that all the school districts in the state are suffering from, in those three categories that we've been talking about, which is special ed, MSOC funding, and transportation, that, if you can go back just one more. The website, that website will give you what WASDA and WASA have put together for the past 5 years for all the school districts. So you can look up Kent and compare it to Auburn and Renton and Federal Way and whoever. But the point is that data is available to you if you want to see why school districts are screaming about they need more stable funding. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you very much, Director Clark. We now move on to our next item, discussion and approval. Is there a motion on the floor?
Madam Chair, I move approval of 801, gifts, donations, and memorials.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded for item 8.01, gifts, donations, and memorials acceptance. We are now open for discussion.
I just want to acknowledge the people that are supporting our kids and the work that they do. At Kent Ridge High School, the Kent Ridge Boosters Band Club put together $700 for registration fee for a festival in Montana. And the Kiwanis Club of Kent wrote a check for $2,940 to support key club activities for the district convention. That's for Kent Ridge. Kent Lake, J-Mark AV, donated equipment to the tune of $17,354 for a replacement projector screen for the Kent Lake Performing Arts Center. In KM, Lucinda Lawson donated $1,000 to support the Kent Meridian Choir. Propel Insurance donated $2,500 for bus driver safety awards banquet, and we really appreciate that. Bus drivers need to be acknowledged. Sunrise Elementary, the PTA put together $1,830 for library book purchase for the students. At Crestwood, the PTA put together $824 for staff lounge, dishwasher, and disposal. And Horizon PTA got $1,634 to support student field trips.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, the motion is on the floor for approval of item 8.01, gifts, donations, and or memorials acceptance. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I make a motion to approve 8. Do I have to say all of them again? I always forget. Motion to approve 8.02 through 8.06.
I'm sorry, could you repeat what your motion is?
To move to approval for 8.02 through 8.06.
This isn't consent.
This is not
Oh, I'm on the
consent.
wrong one.
Yeah,
Yep,
just take
that's
the
right.
first one.
Whoops, I'm kidding.
8.02 only.
Just do 802.
Make a motion to approve 8.02, second reading and approval of policy 3432, emergencies.
Brett, second.
The motion's been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as there is none, a motion on the floor for approval of item number 8.02, second reading and approval of policy 3432, emergencies. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve 8.03, second reading and approval of policy 4210, regulations of dangerous weapons on school premises.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded for approval of item number 8.03, second reading and approval of policy 4210, regulation of dangerous weapons and on school premises. We are now open for discussion. Seeing as there is none, there's a motion on the floor to approve item 8.03, second reading and approval of policy 4210, regulation of dangerous weapons on school premises. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 8.04, second reading and approval of policy 6700, nutrition.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
I did have a question on this. I know we've had some discussion about paying for the school lunches, the school lunch debt that we have. Is it possible for us to look at essentially just paying that down ourselves, like waiving that amount? I know that we do it yearly as a board. My concern is that if we ever end up with a board that doesn't want to do that, and if we weren't here and we leave that behind, and then they decide to go after those people, I would prefer that we're able to, get that taken care of as a whole, especially given the fact that we are now offering free lunches and breakfasts to our students across the board. It seems like something that we're just kind of holding on to without a big purpose, unless there is one.
I believe that there's some state regulation involved with this, and so I asked Superintendent.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Vice President Cook, that I believe just to clarity, it's for any of is it the incurred debt?
Yes.
For lunch? I think and then that really is there's some regulations around that. I think that certainly we can look into that. Previous boards have had conversations about a number of things on how that can be done. There's also regulation around, when we have to, that debt can only stay for so long, because then it starts impacting our district. But I could have Mr. Parangwell share a little bit more about that and look into it more, so that we can probably come back to you and kind of give you a little more about, so what are those regulations? And more importantly, what is that incurred debt?
Yeah.
And then look at some possibilities that the board might be interested in pursuing.
Yeah, or maybe if we could look at maybe including that into policy, so that it's something that we state that we are going to waive those fees. We don't hold children accountable for wanting to eat.
Right.
And that just, that way we can state that and not necessarily have it in a way that we're paying it off, but we're at least stating it so that next boards would have to actively change that or
I
something.
appreciate the, board's willingness and looking into that. As you know, this is a crisis in other districts, and I know that President Margell, you just spoke some testimony at our legislatures about some of this, but no, I appreciate it. Definitely, we'll look into it and get back to our board.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for the question.
Yep. And do you know, this is something I mean, although my time on the board has not been that much longer. We've talked about in previous boards. I just know that we have bumped up against what we're required to do by
Yeah.
state, and we can't make an active policy that is against state regulation.
Yeah, of course.
I guess while we're on this topic, just out of curiosity, I haven't been following it too much, but from OSPI's message a few months ago about the possibility of statewide free lunches and providing the additional funding for that, well, do you guys know if that will also cover retroactively existing debt related to lunch and meals? Or is just anything that will be, okay?
Yeah, and again, I think that's part of what's in the legislature now. I can share with you, Director Song, that districts have looked at a variety of ways to try to mitigate the already incurred debt, but as President Margill mentioned, lots of regulations around that. But I look forward to bringing you back more information on what is our current debt and what might be some ideas that we can do.
To Superintendent Bella's comment, I did just testify at the Senate. If you are interested in looking at the bills, Senate Bill 5352 and then the partner bill in the House of 1404 are some of the bills going through right now for having 100% free lunches in public schools going through the legislature right now. There's also some very important bills going through with transportation special ed and MSOC too, but it would be nice to see all of our kids fed.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank you for advocating for that in our legislature, because it's vitally important. And I know we take care of it at our district, but there are so many other districts that don't have that capacity, and getting our state to take care of it is vitally important.
I would 100% agree. Seeing that there is no more discussion, there is a motion on the floor for approval of item 8.04, second reading and approval of policy 6700, nutrition. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. The motion passes 4-0. I do know that there is a comment for item number 8.05. We will add that comment in at the beginning of the discussion if there's a motion on the floor.
I make good.
Approval-
Go for it.
Move approval of 805, second reading and adoption of policy 6701, recess and physical activity.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded for approval of item 8.05, second reading and adoption of policy 6701, recess and physical activity. We are now open for discussion. We will start with a comment from our community. And the comments, Greta Nelson.
Hi, my name is Greta Nelson. First of all, hello, school board and Superintendent Bela. I'm a community member, a parent of a special needs student in this district. I'm glad to see that the district is holding recess and physical activity as an important thing for students. I want to say that this is necessary to apply the same level of importance regarding recess and the various requirements to SPED students as well. It says in the policy and procedure that the district aims to make recess safe, inclusive, and high quality. My son, because of his complex medical needs and physical limitations and disabilities, means that he follows an individualized education program. The policy and procedure in here states that for school days that are 5 hours or more, it's a 30-minute requirement for recess. My son doesn't have a typical school day like other students. He does have 3.5 hours in the morning at school. He goes home for a 2-hour break and then has an in-home program. So the total of hours are 5. The 30 minutes of recess for my son is the 12 to 12:30 range of his morning block of school. The school is currently limiting his recess to 15 minutes and using the last 15 minutes of his school program to gather his belongings, do diaper changing, and that sort of thing. And I want to say that the policy discusses various things where if a recess occurs before a lunch, that there's transition time for taking coats off, gloves off, that sort of thing. I want to say that my son, who has special needs, should receive his full 30 minutes of recess just like any other student. As part of his morning program, that 30 minutes of recess is part of his social and emotional learning. He's in a closed ASC program, so that exposure to gen ed is very limited, and so that 30 minutes of recess is important, and you should be holding your school buildings accountable for providing the full 30 minutes of recess to special ed students. Thank you.
We are now open for discussion from the board.
So, speaking a little bit to the special ed issue, what are we doing to try and help ensure that our special ed students, and this isn't coming directly from the comment made, more due to the fact that I've been working in other school districts recently and a lot of special ed classrooms, and I have to admit there's a lot of difficulty in being able to get them to recess and being able to exercise, going to PE, and I've seen how difficult it is. And I just wonder, what are we trying to do to improve that here in KSD?
Yeah, no, I think the first is what the board's doing today with this policy, and it does apply to all students. The second, I would say that in the case to all students, it would be related to making sure we implement the IEP. That's critical to all of it. And as the board, takes action tonight, that allows us to make sure that in the procedure that we're making sure that's being done. So that's just kind of high level, as we don't know each situation, but of course, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I'm really happy that we're adding this. This is a new policy, I believe, right? It's not something
Yes,
that's...
it is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're putting it into place because I think it's important that our children are able to get that time, especially, our younger elementary kids, because, they are antsy as heck.
Yeah,
Getting them out and getting them moving and that sort of stuff is so much, it does so much for them.
Yeah.
And as, she had spoken about social and emotional learning, that's, key to those kids being successful in their
Absolutely.
learning career altogether.
And I will say, definitely, as you know, well, now substituting, that you have firsthand look at the importance of physical activity and making sure students have this. So I thank the board again.
I would just clarify, we did have a policy about recess. It was just combined with other items and now have been separated out. So recess has always been, always will be.
Yeah.
My
This is
son's
just more
favorite part
inclusive,
of the
I
day,
think, right?
and
Yeah.
important to the board.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, any other comments? Seeing as none, there is a open motion on the floor of approval of item 8.05, second reading and adoption of policy 6701, recess and physical activity. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion?
Move approval of 806, second reading and adoption of policy 6702, wellness.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
This is were these both from the same place, I'm assuming? Like they were both in the same policy before and then got separated into these two things? Is that right?
We had a very minimal line.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Now it's a full policy.
Okay, that's great. I like that we're taking this into consideration because it is something that, kids can't learn if they're sitting there hungry, right? And so the more that we can do to ensure that all of our students are, their wellness as a whole person is taken care of is vitally important.
Yeah, that's, I think, just wanted for the microphone to say, there was a minimal part of that change in this policy, and so making sure, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comments from the board, there's an open motion for approval of item 8.06, second reading and adoption of policy 6702, wellness. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. Here's our consent agenda. Is there any items that anybody wants to pull?
I make a motion to pull 9.01 through
I'm sorry, you're pulling all of these?
To talk about them?
Yep.
No, that's not what I wanted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there are a couple that I wanted to pull.
Hold
so-
on, let me revisit which
Why
ones
don't
they
we
were.
start with Director Cook?
Okay, sorry, can I?
You want to go to?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so, sorry, I wanted to make a motion to approve 9.01.
Director Song, could you hold on for just one moment? And we're going to I'm going to ask the directors if there's a specific item that they'd like to pull out of the consent agenda items, and then we'll ask for a motion to approve the remainder of the consent
okay.
items. So let me start with Director Cook, and then if there's an agenda item that you would like to pull to discuss, we'll make sure to do that.
Okay.
Director Cook.
Yes, so I wanted to pull, let's see, which one was it here? 9.09. And outside of that, the other ones I looked through and they looked fine, so.
Thank you.
Also wanted to pull 9.11, 9.01, 02, and 03.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Move approval of consent items 904, 905, 906, 907, 908, 910, 912, 913, and 914.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry.
There's been a motion made and seconded for approval of items 9.04, 9.05, 9.06, 9.07, 9.08, 9.10, 9.12, 9.13, and 9.14. The motion has been made and seconded. Now we're open for discussion.
So
We'll come back to what you pulled.
didn't we just say that?
No, we're in discussion right now.
everything
I am
else.
tired today. Okay.
I wonder why you're
We're
tired.
approving all of the other ones.
Seeing that there's no more discussion, there's a motion on the floor to approve items 9.04 through 9.08, 9.10, 9.12 through 9.14. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.01 Kent Lake High School DECA travel to Orlando, Florida, field trip and student travel authorization.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
Mainly asking because I was having tech issues with opening some of these. I know whenever we have these items on the consent agenda, it's so that we could approve the outings and the funding sources for these, but mine came up blank. And so I was just curious to know where the funding was coming from to support these trips.
So the funding, so I've got the open right here, so maybe if you can. So typically, the funding on the travel form will be noted in there.
I can say on this one specifically, CTE is an estimate of 5,200. ASB funds, 10,000. These are estimates for a total of 15,200.
Okay, so there's some cost sharing element there between different funding pools. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Seeing that there's no further discussion, the motion has been made and seconded for approval item 9.01, Kent Lake High School DECA travel to Orlando, Florida, field trip and student travel authorization. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.02 Central Storage and Athletic Building Project Final Acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
Had the same issue with this one. I was just curious to see if we could see the figures for this, for what the final acceptance was.
Let me just pass that up.
I can pull that up. Oh, there we go.
So just for final acceptance, projects done, these are the final numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing that there's no further discussion, a motion has been made and seconded for approval of item 9.02, Central Storage and Athletic Building Project, final acceptance. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.03 Kentwood High School Parking Lot Repairs Project Final Acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
I received a anonymous email about this one, and I wanted to bring up some elements of questions that I had around the funding source for the parking lot repairs. There are some questions that just around equity, around how specific parking lots were identified for repair versus others. And so I was just wondering, could somebody speak to that regarding how that decision was made on which parking lot repairs were formally agreed upon?
So for clarity, it's how the decision was made to
Yeah.
repair the specific
Yeah,
items.
like which school goes first and.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'll have Mr.
right
Buzzard
there,
come on up and share. Thank you.
Let me make sure I'm talking about the right one. Yeah, Director Song, so this was I'm just checking since my assistant director is not here tonight. I just want to make sure. So again, if this was a bond or a levy, it had a very specific scope that was already identified at that point in time. So whatever that parking lot was, that area of the parking lot. When we do go out for parking lot review, it's the worst of the worst. That's what it is. So if there's a lot of alligatoring in them, which is, you see the asphalt taken up, we go out and we do that. That isn't a priority level, just like anything else. So this was an area that was already identified earlier on, and this project was already set, so we did that area. Yes, we have lots of parking lots that need to be redone, absolutely. So this one right here was already on the levy/bond. Just want to make sure it was in there. Sorry. Again, my computer will not bring up the data that I have.
Okay, and then the other question with that was when we had initially requested this through the bonds with the estimated amount or the total for what it would cost to repair and then identified those specific sites. Now that we finally have it, if we identify that the cost exceeds what we were approved for, then where does the additional funds come from?
That would come out of contingency. So we would pull from contingency, and what normally happens on projects like this is that once that is identified, again, this was identified either in 2012 if it was a bond, and it was 2016 if it was a 2018. Just got done in 2024. So that parking lot could have expanded a little bit in damage. Then when you dig underneath the surface, there's an unknown condition underneath there. We don't know what that soil's like. Could have incurred a lot more cost to get it back up to speed, because when we put it in the second time, we want to make sure it's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was the concern that was brought to you?
Just about equity around like our schools in, I guess, better neighborhoods is the way it was phrased. Are they getting priority around getting their facilities and parking lots fixed before schools in other areas?
Yeah, I don't think that's the case as far as I've seen, like, 'cause we've approved quite a few of these.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
it's
like,
good. It's a good question,
Yeah.
though, that, back to it, they're identified early in a bond, and as the years go on they're definitely prioritized, as Mr. Buzzard mentioned, and then there's more wear. And then, as he said, there's wear that we don't know that's underneath. That's why sometimes final acceptance increases that cost, so.
do we do additional reviews? Like, so say we go in in 2016 or whatever, when we identify Kentwood needs to be done, right? And then we find out that Kentridge actually has worse because in 2 years' time, for whatever reason, there's maybe, freezing temperatures and stuff. If it caused
Yeah.
it to be much worse at Kentridge than it was with Kentwood, and Kentwood's has held up better than Kentridge. Do we go through and change that?
There are certainly emergency situations
Yeah.
that may occur, as you might imagine, but I'll let Mr. Buzzard explain that.
That is an age-old question, Vice President Cook, about priority. And we've had this discussion many times from here to there. And I will tell you, yes, we plan to do it at this time on the bond or the levy, but something might come up in priority. It might have been damaged. We try to reseal our parking lots. Resealing a parking lot is minimally inexpensive, and it gives the longevity of the parking lot probably another 5 years. So we do a lot of that around here.
Do we have that easily accessible to people, like our reasoning as far as that goes? Do we have some place that they could, like, if they wanted to look at this when we bring it up for a vote, like, would they be able to see that?
Sure, and the other thing that we're working on is, again, we're this close to a 25-year master plan.
Yeah.
And what that is every single thing in every single building from the time it was built originally, last time it was replaced, how long the lifespan is, and when it needs to be replaced the next time.
I like that.
We are this close
That's
for
awesome.
everything.
I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I'm
But
looking
just to
forward
make
to
sure
present it.
my understanding, if this is listed on a bond, promises made, promises kept, it's going to happen as it's stated on the bond. The flexibility of timing, of course, is if there's multiple items, but if a school is not listed on the bond, that's not going to necessarily be able to be that's not going to be able to be used for bond dollars, nor are we able to just take it off because we want to do another school.
That is correct. Bond has to be done. Promises made, promises kept. Cannot do anything with that. Levy, again, we had a list of items that are out there, but again, we know it's a priority. So if things come up and something goes out, we have that ability, the board has that ability to be able to say, okay, what do we want to bring? What's in a lower priority that we could take to the bottom if we can't finish everything with the levy and move that up? Because again, roofs, boilers, things that, life safety, these are the things that we need to have schools to be open every day. If we don't have those, schools can't be open. A parking lot, I've seen lots of gravel parking lot patches in other districts for a long time.
Thank
So,
you very much.
In a weird situation, say like let's using the bond example, right? And say this was part of that bond. If we had someone that came through and was driving some construction vehicle and damaged the parking lot in total and had to pay for it all to be replaced, what happens in that situation? Because obviously we have money that was designated for that, but someone else has paid for it now. Do we just take that back, give it back to the voters? What's the next step?
Absolutely not. What we would do is we would definitely invoke that person's insurance company to the hilt.
Oh, of course.
And,
I just
and
mean
make
with
sure
our
that-
dollars. though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then what we would do is I would present it to the board to say, it was supposed to be something for that school. If it was a bond, those dollars should stay at that school for something. So let's come up with something that we could do at that school.
I see.
That's how I would present it. It would also be up to the board to decide that. But again, if it was designated for that school, maybe that school could use something, unless there's something of a more higher priority in the district on an equitable lens to be looked at for those dollars to be used.
Okay. I was just wondering, because I know there has to be some sort of way that we can address something bizarre happening, right? So, saying that it can't be done at all, that's what I wanted to get at, is something, there are times that we may have to do something that we don't expect with our bond money. And, I want to make sure our public is aware, we don't do that lightly. It's something that if there is a need beyond what our normal expectations are, that's when we would do that.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Seeing that there's no further discussion, a motion is on the floor for approval of item 9.03, Kentwood High School parking lot repairs project final acceptance. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.09, network cabling capacity improvement, phase 1, change order number 1.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
So I don't know if we have a representative from our IT team here tonight?
Yeah, we do. Mr. Olson's not here. He's not.
Yeah, he's
But
out
we do
today.
have Mr. McAlpin.
I just wanted to go over what we're working on
Sure.
here and just because, I love IT. So.
Absolutely. No, I'll invite Mr. McAlpin up. He is our Assistant Director of Technology and Operations and filling in for Mr. Olson.
Yeah, I looked at this. I'll just explain a little bit here. The original contract amount was 2.718, and now it's 2.729. So it's not changing very much. It looks like a little over $10,000. But I think it's good to point out how we're paying for these things, and that us doing this in a expedient manner, especially right now, given the uncertainty with federal dollars. I think, I just wanted to point out the work that we're doing and how that gets paid for.
Yes, thank you, Director Cook and the rest of the board members, President Margell, Superintendent Vela, Ms. Curry. Yeah, totally agree, right? Funding, hopefully, as you guys recall from the narrative for when phase 1 of this data cabling improvement project was approved by the board, is a combination of tech levy funds and federal E-rate program funds. And the federal E-rate program funds cover as much as 80% of the cost of the data cabling improvement project. So needless to say, with all secondary schools having data cabling improvements performed in them, we can have individual data lines for our phones that need to be installed in these gyms for life safety reasons, pulled at anywhere between half of the normal cost to a third of the normal cost if we were to do it outside the context of this existing project. So financially, it just made way more sense to include it in the scope of this project. Now, full transparency, that phone data cabling, those additions, is outside the context of E-rate funding. So that will be tech levy funds that'll be used to cover that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I worked in that space a bit, working with fiber projects, going to school districts, other school districts than here, as well as businesses and such, and the E-rate funding is just phenomenal. I hope that it isn't taken away from our schools here, because it is a boon to the technology ability of the districts across the entire country to provide that technology that is necessary to provide for the education of our students. So thank you very much for going over that with us.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, there is a motion on the floor for approval of item 9.09, network cabling capacity improvement, Phase 1, change order number 1. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to approve 9.11, Kent Principals Association Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. We are now open for discussion.
I mainly just want to refresh my memory on this. Whenever we have these collective bargains and then they're completed and signed, do they ever get published publicly on the KSD website?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Once they're approved by the board, there may be, make sure we do all corrections before they get to us, and then we get them posted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's actually, like, if you go into the agreement's actually on BoardDocs, like it's in its entirety, so.
Right there. Great.
Okay.
Excited to have this approval, especially for 3 years. Thank you for our team, and thank you for the partnership that we have with our principals. Seeing no further discussion, motions on the floor for approval of item 9.11, Kent Principal Associations, KPA, a collective bargaining agreement. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Our next section is our informational section there for your viewing pleasure. And then we move on to our next item, which I'm
I
excited.
have a question on our informational section. If
Oh,
that's
yes.
all right. Let me pull it up here real quick. It's just one of them. Let me see which one it was. Sorry, I'm trying to find where I put it. Yeah, it was the first one. Okay, I can't remember what it was, so maybe I'll find it and come back and speak to it.
Okay, and I'm absolutely certain that there's somebody here that can answer your questions.
Oh, I found it. Sorry, I clicked the next one. All right, so it was on, where is this at? This is 2022P is the one that I was looking at. And I read through, it's on page 12 of 13. And the section is, let's see, right below the bulleted list, there's a paragraph there that I had a question on.
So I'll have Ms. Hawley come on up.
Just for reference, this is item 10.01.
I'm sorry, Vice President Cook, where were you looking?
It says it's page 12 of 13 in
Okay.
2022 P, and it's in, there's a bulleted list in the red section or what have you that I'm looking at.
Oh, yeah, you just passed it.
Oh, we have the
Yeah, right
final version up. Hang on just one
Oh,
second.
it should be the same.
Okay.
Because it's just the,
Are you talking about website and social media posting?
yes.
That's the new part that was added in, that was
Yeah.
inadvertently left off of the one that was just put through for informational.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that was in there.
So one of the questions I had was, I see that it says, any commenter who believes the district wrongfully removed any comment may appeal the decision by contacting whatever. And I was, communications@kent.k12.wa.us. Well, one, there's an error in the wording there, but that's okay. Just because it missed the A in the WA part. But outside of that, I was wondering if we could proactively send that information to each person when we do decide to delete a comment, or if we decide to ban someone, so that they are aware that both, one, that it was deleted in an active way from us, and then also, two, that they know how to address it if they wish to. It just seems like, giving it here, I don't know that anyone on Facebook is going to necessarily read through this, 15-page document or what have you, to then get to this one paragraph where they can find it. And I just think it's important that we let them know, especially if we're doing something that is taking away the voice of our community, that we make sure to tell them why we did it and how they can address it if they think it's improper.
Ms. Sisley?
So kind of like Twitter jail.
Yeah.
Good evening, President Margell, members of the board, Superintendent Vela, Ms. Curry. Yes, our practice and policy procedure is to post when we remove. So if you look through different posts anywhere from the last few years, you'll see just a little paragraph that's actually an excerpt from this that says why we removed it.
I see.
So that's our standard practice right now. If we could discuss possibly notifying the person another way, but when you actually post that, you put at the person.
Oh, okay.
And that
Yeah,
notifies
so
them
that
as
should
well.
notify them. And does it tell them like how to address it, like where they need to contact?
No, right now it's just why it was removed.
Okay.
So we could add communications at
Yeah.
K12.1.
Just so that they know where to go.
Yes.
I just like to make it as easy as possible for people to
Sure.
understand what's going on.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
That's all I had.
Perfect. Okay, now we get to move on to our oath of office, which we added as item 11.0. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Vela.
Yes, thank you, President Margell. At this time, I would like to invite Ms. Gregory to join me at the flag over to my right for her oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Teresa Gregory,
I, Teresa Gregory,
having been duly appointed
having been duly appointed
to the office of Kent School District Director, District Number 4,
to the office of Kent School District, District Number 4,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of this office
discharge the duties of this office
as prescribed by law and to the best of my ability,
as prescribed by law and to the best of my ability,
and that I will support and maintain
and I will support and maintain
the Constitution of the State of Washington
the Constitution of the State of Washington
and the United States of America.
and the United States of America.
Congratulations. And now you can be seated.
And we're going to invite Director Gregory to the dais as we move on to our next section, which is our board reports, as we have no other communication from the audience. I'm also going to be kind and not call on you first, so you can see a little bit of what we do. Let's start with Director Song.
Yeah, for my board report, again, just want to thank Superintendent Vela and then also with his leadership team on the continued efforts, especially with what we went through last week with the snow. I know making those decisions were not light and easy, but I do want to acknowledge the amount of effort and time it does take to make those decisions, having to wake up at 2, 3 in the morning, monitoring, putting themselves in the field of potential danger and iciness. And so I feel like a lot of that work oftentimes goes unnoticed. And so I just want to provide that acknowledgement publicly. Also had the opportunity to go to the unified basketball game for my second year now, and that was a lot of fun. I was joined there by a majority of our board, Superintendent Vela, and other members of the leadership. So aside from that, I will end my board report for this week.
Thank you very much, Director Song. Director Clark?
My school visit, I was able to attend the final home game of the Kent Ridge basketball team. We went through a lot of discussion last night of many different questions, and I felt that we never got around to actually identifying sources of some of this. So just a quick overview of where does the money come from. So in this school district, if you put in the general fund, which is about 55%, and then special projects is another 20%, so it's 75.6% if you're into fine detail. The federal government in just general and special projects is only 8.3%. The levy does bring in 14.8% for a total of 97.8%, and the other comes from other sources. You know that Superintendent Vela and I were recently down in Olympia, and I was honored to be named by WASDA to present to the other state legislator groups in a group of 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Clark. Director Gregory, would you like to say anything?
I want to thank the board and Superintendent Vela for giving me the opportunity to take this position, and I am super excited to get my feet and hands dirty coming up.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Vice President Cook.
All right, so I was invited to present at Pine Tree Elementary today at their career fair. It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of vocations present. I was really impressed. They had, I can't tell you, probably 20, 30 different vocations that were there. It was really interesting. Mine was not as exciting as the police or the arborist, which had a chainsaw that was, I swear, 5 feet long. It was enormous, and the kids just ate it up. They had so much fun. I had a great time. I hope to see that every year because it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I also am happy to say that we have appointed our new board member. I'm glad that she is now seated. That's very exciting. I'm looking forward to working with Director Gregory and finding what stuff we can work together on to improve education here in Kent School District. I also joined Director Song earlier this week in attending the Lunar New Year celebration at the Capitol in Olympia. I had a wonderful time, and I was able to meet Washington State's first refugee legislator, Representative Mai Lin Tai. And I look forward to our communities promoting the inclusion of refugee voices in our local and state governments. Hearing from all who call our state home is imperative in supporting a more inclusive and supportive community. So I'm really happy to see that the Bellevue community chose to have her represent them, and I think that's just wonderful. I was also lucky enough to have the opportunity to attend the Future Freshman Night at Kentwood, as I have a future freshman that is going to be going there. And it was a great chance to be able to see what the staff is doing to help them, transition into their high school career. And so it was really great. They had a lot of different presentations from different classes for electives, as well as the counselors there to help them figure out what they were going to do next. I also finally wanted to say that I met with Superintendent Vela for lunch recently. We went to lunch at the Meridian Valley Country Club, and Superintendent Vela was nice enough to pay for my lunch. I had a salad. And so I just wanted to make sure, in the interest of transparency, that I'm just stating that just to let everyone know. Other than that, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. First, I'd like to, again, welcome Director Gregory. I have a little bit prepared. To your first full board meeting will be on February 26, 2025.
Yes.
Thank you for your flexibility in coming tonight. And we thank you for joining us for your oath of office, and then also for the hours that you'll be putting in from here on out.
Yeah.
Thank you for your dedication to the Kent School District. We look forward to working in support of our students, our families, our staff, and our community. And I would like to invite everybody to please join me one more time in welcoming Ms. Teresa Gregory as Kent School District's newest board member. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the remainder of the applications. It was overwhelming to see the interest from our community to be part of the district and the work that we do here, the good work that we do here. So thank you very much. There was no more. Let's see. I did have on here about testifying to the Senate. I know that did get brought up, but I would also like to point out that we had I'm proud to say that my daughter actually also testified at this, and so encourage both our parents, our community, and our teachers, but also our students, that your voice is important and so heard. And so it is very easy to testify. The act might be a little hard. Sometimes it's hard to, say the words, but it's 90 seconds of your life to be able to support something that you really believe in, and it's easy to sign up at least to do it. So I encourage other students that are passionate about what happens in our state to be part of that. Speaking of our students, had a fantastic work session with River Ridge and Kent Ridge, and then our Kent Educators of Color, talking about the good work that they're doing and moving the needle to making KSD a more inclusive district, place to work for all, and really making it a destination place to work. I am excited to say that I've heard already from the student voices that we heard about providing additional safety and a more welcoming environment at Kent Ridge, that there's some movement in getting additional signage and knowing which door to walk in. So glad to hear that, and also know that there's continued work. They talked a lot about the arts, and just want to go back several months ago, and the board, the majority of the board voting for the D wing expansion and what's happening in the arts there, and continue the good work that's happening at Kent Ridge to be able to support the arts and how important that is to their school. Thank you for the presentation tonight around athletics. I bring this up as a community member as working for a business in the community. I love hiring people that have worked in, that have participated in sports. And Mr. Smith brought out some really important things that we look for in hiring that he specifically brought up. Planning for success, competitiveness, positive habits, falling down and getting back up, and then just being part of something. And these are the skills that employers look for. And I just love the support that we have for athletics and activities within our district to help develop those skills for our next workforce. Also, it was fun to be part of the United Night. The student section is fantastic, and I look forward to see that at all of our sporting activities. I want to do a shout out again for the communication and transparency in how decisions were made during the storm. Thank you very much. As a parent, I was well informed at 7 a.m. with a text and another text and an email, and we communicate very, very well, and my children got to sleep through that, and we're very excited about having a day off. So thank you very much for making sure it's safe for our students and our teachers and communicating through all of that. Looking through my mess of notes here, I believe that's everything. It is 8:19. I thank you all for being here, and thank you for our students. We do this for you every single day, and our focus is on you. Have a good evening.